So I wanted to share with you the following, because if we take some esoteric teachings from the East concerning reincarnation, rebirth, etc., and if we also couple that with the knowledge that we are infinite awareness, then usually, especially when you take into account the situations where people talk about past lives, that they can remember a life that they lived before on this planet as a totally different person in a totally different country perhaps, but sometimes they are actually reborn apparently in the same country and perhaps into the same family. Even that has happened, at least stories like that I've read about myself, but it doesn't really matter the details as much. It's more the concept behind this reincarnation cycle that we can call a trap, because it essentially keeps you away from experiencing your own infinite nature, because you're constantly being brought back to a transient realm. Now, if we can look at it from a certain angle, at least that I jotted down in my journal, it can be perhaps pretty revealing. Because what happens, physically speaking, to the masses when something new comes out, a new technology, a new car, a new piece of clothing or this or that, it's being marketed towards humanity, and then humanity at large looks at it and thinks, that looks cool, I like that, I want that, so I'm gonna buy it. So off they go, trying to buy it. I don't know about you, but during the pandemic time, 4 years ago, when the new game consoles came out, the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, stuff like that, you know, I like playing games, right? In my pastime, in between this work, I like playing some video games here and there. And, you know, for that, I wanted to have a PlayStation 5. The thing wasn't available. It was very hard to get it because of the pandemic, making everything very slow in production, etc., as far as Sony described it back then. So it became kind of valuable to get your hands on one, and people were, you know, if they got their hands on it, they were reselling it online for a much higher price to make a profit. There were some people making millions, which in the end was considered kind of like a immoral thing. And I think in the UK they passed a law that it's no longer allowed to even do that, to make money in that way on somebody else's product. But you see, the point being, it was a very rare device at the time, and people really wanted it, including myself. Because, you know, sometimes there's stuff here, physically speaking, you're like, hey, I like that, I want that. So you're kind of fascinated by it. But now let's take this into the spiritual realm. Once you die, and you enter the fourth astral dimension, which is the fourth dimension very much. Right now we're in three-dimensional space. And then when you die, you go into the fourth dimension, which is the astral world. And what happens to most people, right? If we take the concept of reincarnation, is that they are either being taught by entities in the astral realm that they need to go back to Earth to learn better lessons because, oh, you made some mistakes during your physical life journey. You weren't really nice. You weren't infinitely loving to every fucking thing under the sun. That's why you need to go back to learn to do it. Something that is pretty much impossible. How can you be truly loving to someone that hurts you, that violates you, that abuses you, perhaps, when you grow up as a child, etc.? It makes no freaking sense. So that is one way that, through my studies from, you know, reincarnation and out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, etc., you can find out there online all these stories that are, you know, recorded so people can study it for themselves. You see this pattern of learning lessons. So that's one way that a person can be learned back into the physical dimension, still not grasping their true infinite nature. So what is this other thing that I jotted down for myself? Well, it's this. In physical life, when something new comes out, people might rush to get it. And to me, that's kind of funny in a way. However, when we die and are shown new things going on in three-dimensional space, so just imagine for a second yourself being in the fourth dimension, at least there. Could be a higher dimension perhaps, but we're working here with the one that is most closest to us, which is the astral realm. Imagine being there, and then you're shown things about the third dimension that look interesting to you all of a sudden the world looks different. Society looks different. Technology suddenly looks pretty cool down there. So you rush back into this realm, wanting to experience it, only to realize when you are back into it that this realm is the same shit show all over again, with the same limitations, with the same drama, and same transient essence behind it all. See, I truly believe that this is another way that we are kind of tricked into coming here to give up our own infinity to experience the finite world, which could be a positive thing. It could have been a positive thing, but something happened on this planet that made it a shit show for all of us by now, that it's no longer as fun. However, if you are still being tempted by new things looking interesting and appealing to you, you might always be manipulated and tempted to go for it, to go back to this dimension, for example. So it is best to remember that no matter how enticing this dimension might one day appear all over again from a higher dimension while you're looking down on it, well, don't fall for it. It's the same stuff. It's the same DLC package of madness. DLC is a term in gaming for downloadable content. It's the same madness down here, just looking a bit different due to the technology and overall advancement and changes in the material realm itself. You see, that's just one thing I jotted down in my journal that I thought was interesting to share with you as well. To consider it for yourself, that when the time comes and you leave this realm, you're in the astral realm, and for whatever reason you're curious about three-dimensional space all over again, you look down to it, and then remember, wait, this is just another DLC package that ultimately causes me to experience the same limitations all over again. So if you don't enjoy it, if you don't really like being limited any longer, then remember that, going back down there, even though it looks cool and new, it's still going to put you into limitations all over again. And perhaps it's going to make you forget for a long time again the true nature of your own infinity, keeping the reincarnation cycle going over and over for everyone. Now let's talk about death for a second here, that when people hear someone die, or they have died, right? Especially in the West, but globally usually, we say, sorry for your loss. You might hear that. When you tell someone a family member of yours died, they might say, oh, sorry for your loss. But in reality, there is nothing lost. So it is a nice thing to say to people, of course, if they are not spiritually awakened to that point yet, that they see infinity and unity and go beyond the illusion of physicality and separation. But the point being is there is nothing lost. And to believe in that is an illusion. Through infinite imagination, you can still communicate with the other person who has transitions. So when we hear people say this, and after further observation, we realize that either they have no spiritual awareness, or they're just trying to be nice, which is of course better than being rude, but in most cases the saying and feeling of, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss, and when death comes for them or for a family member of theirs, they feel so much loss. Well, they're fooled into taking this reality as the truth when it's an illusion. You never lost anyone. They're still accessible to you through your infinite imagination. This is also very important to consider and to discover for yourself, because that way the sting of that kind of loss doesn't hurt you in the same way. Perhaps it won't hurt you at all, but it causes so much suffering for most people out there when someone dies, because they think they lost them. Yeah, physically speaking, you don't see them anymore. Yeah, that's why you have to understand this is all an illusion, to make you limited, to keep you blind to your own infinity, the unity. Now, another thing I jotted down was concerning the dreams that people have on Earth. And I simply put it like, why chase dreams on Earth? Why not learn and discover that you can dream things into being inwardly through your infinite imagination, and then once the body dies, you keep on creating and enjoying whatever you please. You don't need the physical dimension to enjoy anything. To keep on chasing dreams, perhaps achieving them and then losing it all through physical death, because you had not learned that everything exists within yourself. Now this goes against everything, against our entire human being, to simply let go of everything in this world. But in doing so, your consciousness goes from being small and limited to infinity with zero boundaries. Now, why does it feel strange and difficult? Because we have become so attached to the limitations of the flesh, have gotten so used to only considering everything from a human point of view, that infinity at first sounds completely bizarre. But it doesn't take a lot of contemplation to discover that the way home to infinity is by letting go of all the limiting beliefs and ideas we've held so dear as a human. Remember this. Truly, your only goal in life is to set your own consciousness free. That's really the only goal, purpose to our existence as a human. Because if we don't do it, then we keep reincarnating. Our consciousness keeps getting recycled back from death back into physicality, and then from physicality back into the after-death states, the astral realms, and then back to physicality. It's no joke, that's really what's happening to all of us if we remain ignorant. But if you go beyond this ignorance, if you get rid of it, if you remember your true nature, then you can go beyond it and be free and create for all of eternity by the power of your infinite imagination instead. So it's very important that we have to stop believing in this physical dream, seeing it as real no matter what happens to the body, good or bad, being attached to stuff and people in this realm, because that is what keeps us stuck and mentally and emotionally invested in it. We already know this physical experience is temporary, so why would we attach to any part of it? But yet we remain so incredibly attached to it. That is the mistake keeping us stuck in this realm, both while in the journey and after death through reincarnation cycles. We remain attached to things and especially other people. But yet if we take reincarnation as real, then we must have been attached to dozens of other families before and have forgotten all about them. Why then would we be so attached all over again during this journey to the current family we have? Because after death, it is these attachments that make you want to come back to experience the physical dream all over again. And don't get me wrong, if you enjoy it here physically, if you love this place, then you're free to come back over and over again. But some of us, and more people are starting to realize, I don't really like it down here at all anymore. So we need a remedy. We need greater knowledge on how to get out of it, and this is trying to show you hints at that. It sounds incredibly cold at first, and most won't want to do it or find it too bizarre, to get rid of your attachments. But yet it is the truth. We are all infinite awareness with infinite imagination, but we have given up our power by becoming attached to this physical realm, specifically. Now, by becoming unattached, you won't lose anything at all. You will regain your power of infinite imagination, and ultimately, through that, you can still get in touch with any person you want. But you do it in higher dimensions and no longer through attachment to physical life itself, where everything is suffering by intent. You don't become cold towards others by giving up attachment. You're only giving up your own emotional and mental reactions to whatever happens to you or them in this physical dimension, whilst knowing the truth that we are all infinite awareness, having a human experience which is temporary. Therefore there is no need to let yourself slide into all this inner turmoil over something transient.